There is no break before we go into Season 6, because this is an extremely exciting season. But before I start with that, it's time to swing by a national park, and this time it is the Golden Spike National Historical Park outside of Brigham City, Utah, on the north side of the Great Salt Lake. This is the first place a rail line crossed the Great Barrier of North America, the Rocky Mountains, and it would transform the journey from the east side of North America to the west side, from a once-in-a-lifetime journey to something someone could do in a round trip, all in a single month. An exhausting month, but a single month all the same. The park encompasses the location of the track itself, as well as some of the infrastructure required to make the line happen. Worker camps, cuts into the mountainside, fills, and trestles. Though the line was abandoned for more modern routes and efforts starting in 1904, and the track was pulled up during World War II in the hunt for scrap iron, much of the site has been recreated to give visitors a sense of what was there when this barrier to travel and commerce was crossed for the first time by dependable mechanical travel. This park was the perfect place to start this season, as the railroad is going to be the single force that will tie the United States together as a single country and feed the fire that will drive the philosophy of manifest destiny. Because more and more people can travel across it, the United States will suddenly start to feel as large as it is. Golden Spike National Historical Park creates some context around the engineering feat that was the 19th century railroad. Possibly the most amazing part is how much of it was built by hand. In many cases, the most modern part was the dynamite used to blast away cliff sides and the rolled steel rails shipped out to the sites. Meanwhile, the grades were dug by people wielding shovels, rail ties were cut by people wielding axes, and shaped with hand tools as well. This mechanical ribbon across the country, this major entry into the machine age, was crafted by hand and at the cost of thousands of lives. The people who worked on the railway and the industry supporting it would end up shaping American culture. Irish, Chinese, and German workers all had major presences in different parts of the line, as did large numbers of people released from slavery all over the growing United States. So come to Utah sometime and check out this literal pivot point of American history. Hello, and welcome to this preview episode of Season 6. I Want to Go Fast. This season will cover the latter part of the 19th century, all the way up to the start of World War I, or the Great War as it was known at the time. For in so many ways, the 20th century doesn't really start until after that war ends. Sure, there was the year 1900, but in so many ways, that's not the end of the 19th century the way the war was. And there's no break between Season 5 and Season 6, because my long break last winter was really about getting ready for both of these. And let's face it, this period is truly thrilling. Can't wait to get going. The end of the 19th century is the period where America truly stops being an offshoot of its European progenitors and plants the roots for what will become the American identity. Sure, the United States can point to this or that influence for its beginnings, but the gulf has been widening for decades. Looking at cookbooks, thoughts about food, and the war of words that is to come, this is the period where American spirit lies. And it's not just the corn or the cotton or the smoked meats. This is the period of time when the bigness of America as an idea really starts to affect the way we think about ourselves. The unfathomable giantness of America has been there since the Louisiana Purchase. But for most people, just how big that was truly unimaginable. That much space, it was inaccessible, so we couldn't imagine it. Almost nobody had traveled that far, so we had no way to think about what across a continent even meant. But that's going to change as all of a sudden trains start to run across it. The American Civil War cemented trains as how this country is going to run, and the connection of East Coast to West Coast with that golden spike up in the mountains at the north end of the Great Salt Lake in Utah was the moment when the fever dream of manifest destiny became solid in the waking world. Before that iron road connected the eastern ports to California, if you wanted to travel from one coast to the other, there were 2.5 different ways to do it. Get on a boat and sail all the way around Cape Horn, passing between Tierra del Fuego and Antarctica, and then traveling up the west coast of South America and then halfway up North America. This was not quick. In Henry Richard Dana's classic Age of Sail book, 2 years before the mast, he recounts the 2-year journey from Boston to California and back. Now, he was on a trading voyage, so there was some rather lengthy stops along the way, which added time. More typical journeys with a sort of get there with only a few side quests still took somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 days. When the clipper ship The Flying Cloud made the journey in 89 days and 8 hours in 1854, it was a record that stood for sailing vessels for 135 years. Now, if waving at penguins and the accompanying ice storms seemed like too much of an adventure and you're traveling light, you could clamber over the Isthmus of Panama, taking a combination of pack mule canoes and overexcited foot trails while dodging jaguar snakes and landslides to meet up with a boat on the other side. And then you could sail up the west coast to your California destination. This trip took around 2 months, so really a much smaller bite of time. All the same, the majority of people who took this trip did it once and stayed in California or somewhere on the west coast. Now, if the water was not for you, well, then pack up a wagon and get ready to look after your horses, mules, or oxen and try for the overland route. Granted that the majority of people who did this took the train out of New York or Boston or Philadelphia or whatever and headed for the Mississippi River to take off from there. Though later on, with railroad growth, people were taking the train all the way to the Missouri River in the 1850s. Now, this method required an approximately $1,000 investment in 1850s money in a wagon, livestock, and supplies, so it was not a cheap way to go, nor was it particularly quick. The wagon trip took about 6 months, but you could bring more stuff than that Isthmus trip. So it really split the difference between the long way on the ship, a year to a year and a half, versus 2 months. Later on, there were also faster stagecoach runs that took around a month, but you weren't bringing any baggage. While the Golden Spike and the joining of the Central Pacific Railway to the Union Pacific was labeled the Transcontinental Railway, there was not at that point actually a way to take a single train route coast to coast. But you could take a train over the mountains, and that was the large obstacle that had been conquered. In 1869 or even 1870, if you started in New York, you'd have to change train systems multiple times. And then you'd also have to transfer using alternate methods of transportation in a couple of different places. One train system could get you from New York to Chicago, which was the rail hub of what was then considered the Northwest. That leg wasn't particularly remarkable or arduous, but from there, you'd need to make your way, again, by train from Chicago to Council Bluffs, Iowa, on the banks of the Missouri River. And from there, you and probably several train cars would take a ferry across the river and hop on the last continuous leg of the trip. A few years later, in 1872, a bridge would finally be built, making it possible to travel coast to coast entirely by train. Anyway, this entire trek took somewhere in the area of 2 weeks in the earliest days and cost around $150 in 1850s money, something close to around $3,000 or so now. And this did not include food and the intermittent lodging as you waited for different connections along the way. Soon the trip would shorten to something closer to a week, and the resulting blistering rate of travel fed into the new American obsession of, I want to go fast. Over the last 200 years or so of food history in North America, the main technological advancements had been the introduction of the steel plow and the incorporation of mechanical lifts and bolting trays into increasingly efficient wind and water mills. These advancements had changed the game for farming and for the production of flour, and we saw it in cookbooks as sauces and other recipes moved from using breadcrumbs as thickeners to the flour itself. The roux as the base of gumbo and bechamel and other white sauces are the result of flour being so plentiful it could be used as an ingredient in things other than just bread. The other technology jumps during this time in the food world were the movement from fireplace to stove, a brick bread oven that moved to the side of the indoor fireplace, and then an iron stovetop above an enclosed and much more efficient firebox. But those innovations will seem like nothing in an era that goes from only foot and horse-powered travel to one that ends with trains, electric lights, and by the 1890s, an emerging mass market for automobiles. By creating these means of travel, the United States, which was a big country compared to its European counterparts even at the start, the United States will begin to feel like a big country to the people who live there. Suddenly you can go very far away in startlingly short amounts of time. In just days, you could see places that looked entirely different compared to anything you'd ever seen, and yet you were still in the same country. This meant the American diet was also about to change. In many ways, it would expand. Orange juice and olives, potatoes and pigeon would be added to the pork and corn and pumpkin. Ethnic foods would arrive in earnest. The legendary coffin ships, both sail and then steam, would transport hundreds of thousands of immigrants from a Europe that was going through famine, revolution, and war. Jewish communities will set up as they escape Europe-wide pogroms and bring their baking and pickling expertise. As the Prussian Empire transforms into Germany, the upheaval will bring a wide selection of people from Central Western Europe, along with their sausage, mustard, potato, and cabbage traditions. Chaos on the Italian peninsula, as strange remnants of the Roman Empire clash with a bloated, senescent Ottoman Empire, will send waves of immigrants, particularly from the south end of the peninsula, as well as the island of Sicily. Chinese food begins to arrive in New York as well as San Francisco, as the instability from the end of the Qing dynasty and the Opium Wars moves Chinese subjects across the oceans. French food begins to overtake English food in America as the fashionable food to be serving. Fine dining at home and at clubs and at the very first restaurants expands and expands again as ever more types of plates, cups, saucers, bowls, and silverware are created with the arrival of machines in the making of stuff. Americans begin to eat outside of their homes with a new frequency, so luncheon places, diners, and coffee and tea houses emerge to offer alternative places to purchase prepared food to the pubs and bars, which had really only been open to adult men. Push carts will appear to serve oysters, ice cream, and hand pies, not all at the same time, and they will create the street hazard of the discarded banana peel. But in other ways, the American diet would weirdly, slowly shrink. Local things that were time-consuming, that had been cultivated and developed to plug holes in the annual rotation of food, would start to get displaced by foodstuffs that could be brought in from somewhere else. The way is being paved for your local salad greens to be replaced by iceberg lettuce early in the 20th century. America will also have a short love affair with buying wild game in cities, as the market hunter makes the most of the train to chase wild food for profit until they eat it all up. All this transportation of food to restaurants, to markets, to be eaten outside of the home meant that new packaging had to be invented to move stuff around in. The barrel will no longer be the only way to move food around. Now there's the metal can, the glass bottle, the production of which is going to be mechanized in these decades. But possibly the most important to American food production and transportation, we get the invention of paper made from wood pulp and the related creation of cardboard. Yes, we are in the time when the cardboard box is born, and so is color printing. So we are also entering the age of advertising in a way humans had never encountered before. We're going to invent all manner of new foods, shelf-stable fats that need no refrigeration, store-bought cookies, name-brand crackers, instant breakfast cereal that you eat by adding, wait for it, cold milk that's delivered to your door by a milkman. The bakery is going to be challenged, and people are going to be learning about germs and vitamins, and they're going to get very wrong ideas about radiation. While ice shipping was invented in the first half of the century and created a splash in wealthy circles, ice making and the dawn of mobile refrigeration on ships, on train cars, and in warehouses will also change the game. The age of eating seasonally and locally, because that was the only choice, is going to be challenged as a result. Who produces food and how much human labor is involved and how close to your home that labor happens is also going to change. People are going to start to recognize brands. Most will be local in the 19th century, but a few will travel the country on trains, and so we will get some of the very first household names. The first 100 years or so of the United States was laying a foundation based on Northern European cooking principles. The brewing, pickling, baking, hunting, and farming arrived in this country one way, but a century and more of working with the American growing seasons, vast expanses of land, and the more or less sudden arrival of fast overland cargo services is about to create something very new and something that seems very modern. So pull up to your place at the table for Season 6 to hear all about the period of time when the United States really starts to turn into being American. I mean, a grocery store shelf that holds 14 different brands of bottled salad dressing in at least 30 different flavors came from somewhere. America wants to go fast and probably chilled with machine-made ice. Thanks for listening. Any email, questions, or quibbles will continue to reach me at thehistoryofamericanfood@gmail.com. Downloading the episodes helps me know that you're out there, but even better than that are your reviews. And if you like what you hear, tell a friend, tell a stranger, tell your grocer. Music for this podcast is Fingerlympics by Dr. Turtle, and you can find me on Threads, Insta, and elsewhere as @THOA Food, and all this information is available in the show description. And look out for lots of thoughts about food in the TV show, The Gilded Age.